Hi guys, today I had wanted to do the year so far tag that Dane Reads tagged me in. It's the check-in tag that somebody else created. I can't remember their name, but when I do that tag I will add their name. But the reason why I'm not doing that tag right now is because Goodreads is down. You know, Goodreads every once in a while, people who know Goodreads, they go down every so often for maintenance, and it sometimes takes them a couple hours to do what they're doing. And so instead, today I'm going to do another tag that I wasn't tagged in, but I thought would be a lot of fun, and that's the Reader's Problem tag, or Reader's Problems tag. So there's 11 questions, I think, so let's get started. Question number 1. I have to read the questions, they're down here. You have 20,000 books in your to-be-read pile. How in the world do you decide what to read next? It's never easy for me. I usually just go by what's bugging me the most to read, and if I don't have anything that's really bugging me that I have to read right now, then I'm in a reading slump. And there's another question a little later on that deals with reading slumps, and I'll just answer that then, or how to deal with reading slumps. So question number 2. You're halfway through a book and you're just not loving it. Do you quit or do you commit? It's a good question. There was a time when I soldiered through it. I was like, you know, I'm gonna finish this book. I don't care. I'm gonna finish it. And then around 10 years ago I realized that life is just a little too short, and so why torture yourself with something you're not enjoying? It makes no sense whatsoever, and yet people do it. But hey, that's them. I, on the other hand, choose not to finish the book. I will not finish a book if I'm not enjoying it. It's too many times, you know, before I would continue reading the book because I thought that it might get better. There's always that hope, but usually if the first 100 pages at least isn't grabbing you, it's not going to. Just move on to the next book. That's what I do anyway. Question number 3. The end of the year is coming and you're so close to your Goodreads reading challenge. Do you try and catch up, and if you do, how? If you know, I've been in this situation the last few years. Since my son was born in 2013, I was never able to meet my Goodreads reading challenges. I used to read like anywhere between 40 to 60 or 80 books a year, and it's just now starting to get back to maybe close to 40 books. And but there was a few years there where I couldn't even do 20 books in a year. It was just, you're just on the go all the time, and you're too tired to read, and that actually got me really depressed. I really just wanted to get to reading again, but you know, the little guy, he demands your attention, and it should be that way. I did nothing to try and get to my reading goal. I just let it go, and I'll probably do the same thing. I actually change my reading goals sometimes. I've changed it this year. I had it at 30, I think, and I've moved it up to 35 or 40, and I'm already like way ahead of schedule. But I'm gonna leave it. If I surpass it, I surpass it. If I somehow don't reach it, then big deal. Alright, question number 4. The covers of a series you love do not match. How do you cope? For me, covers are very important. Let's get that out of the way first. Covers are very important. Whoever said don't judge a book by its cover, they were well-meaning, but they were also probably a little delusional. Books sell by their covers. It's psychological, and so if you grab me, then I'm reading a series of books, and I'm faithful to that series of books, then the covers, they already either A, won me over, or B, I don't care. And to be honest with you, I love looking at book covers. sometimes book covers are just so awesome, you know. And if you got the book in your hand but you're not reading it, just stare at the cover and it's like, ah, that's awesome. I love artwork. If the book cover or the book covers for a series doesn't match this series, then it's no real big deal for me. I mean, they're always changing book covers too. Stephen King books are notorious for this. They're always changing them. I kind of prefer the original book covers from the 80s and 90s, and then they come up with these new ideas and I can't. I just, but you know, you deal with it. Move on. Question number 5. Everyone and their mother loves a book you really don't like. Who do you bond with over shared feelings? I have 2 people that I talk to when a book is pissing me off because I don't like it. And one is Michael Schutz. He co-hosts the Darkness Dwells podcast with me. I've mentioned him a few times on this channel. We're always bitching about books, and we're always praising books through mostly like Facebook Messenger. But yeah, if I don't like, we don't always agree either. Sometimes I'll be like, I've been reading this book and man, I hate it. And he's like, really? I love that book, and vice versa. But I also talk to Jen, my wife, and she doesn't read the same genre as me, but she gets it. She understands that if, you know, if a book that you thought was going to be awesome or everyone's raving about and you read it and you're like, what? She gets that, and so she'll listen to me. Question number 6. This one's kind of a funny one. You're reading a book and you're about to start crying. You're in public. What do you do? Or how do you deal with it? I've been there, sort of. I've been, like, you know, at work or just reading in bed with my wife, and, you know, a book will hit you in the feels and you feel the tears coming. Even when I'm just alone with my wife, I do not like showing, you know, the tears. I don't know why. I can't. It's something I have to keep to myself. And so in order to, you know, you do one of those like oh my where you just look away. You do everything you can. You fight it. You fight the good fight. You know, like, and if I have to, I will stop reading until I'm alone, and then let it out. You know, one book that really hit me hard was Joe Hill's Horns. The ending to that book, oh man, emotional, man. I can't express how emotional that story was. Alright, question number 7. A sequel of a book you love just came out, but you've forgotten a lot from the prior novel. Will you reread the book, skip the sequel, try to find a synopsis on Goodreads, cry in frustration? I've been there too. You read the first book, and then the second book comes along and you're like, I can't really remember too much of what happened in the first. I will sometimes read the first book. I did that a lot, especially with if I really, really love the series, like George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know how many times I read that first book. I've read it so often I can't stand it anymore. I just can't. The second book too. The third, you know, as you get along the series, it's less amount of times you've read it. But there are also times when I'll just soldier through and hope that the author did their job, and by their job I mean, I think it's the author's responsibility, if they're going to write a series or a sequel, to give friendly reminders here and there of what happened, if there's anything that needs to correlate with that first book. And so yeah, that's what I'll do sometimes, just hope that the author will give me friendly little nudges, like, hey, this happened, remember? Question number 8. You do not want anyone to borrow your books. How do you politely tell people nope when they ask? That's a good question, because I have had experience with lending books and either A, not getting them back, or B, getting them back mangled so the pages are falling out and everything. No. So there's I will lend my books, but I have some I have some restrictions. One, if I have an expensive book or a real rare collector's item, no, that's off limits. I spent way too much money for you to be bending the spine back and popping the pages out. No. But if it's just like your regular paperback, I will lend it and I'll say, hey. And if I have noticed that the lendee is a book abuser, you know the people I'm talking about, the people who like bend, like I was just describing, who like bend the books like that so it'll stay open on the desk or wherever they're reading. Nah, you don't do that. That ruins books. Or, you know, dog earing, I'm a little on the fence with, but I don't really like it that much. And don't write in my book, and don't get your peanut butter fingers and chocolate all over my pages, please. So, you know, if I notice people are like that with their own books, I will lend the book and say, please, you know, be respectful. And if I get it back and it's all messed up and ruined, then I just won't lend to them anymore, because, you know, I like my books. I want to keep them in reading order in case I ever want to go back to them. Alright, question number 9. Reading ADD. You've picked up and put down 5 books in the last month. How do you get over your reading slump? And I suffer from reading slumps, especially in the last, 4.5 years, which is roughly the same age as my son. You know, when you're tired and you're grumpy and you want to escape into another world, you want to be taken away, but every time you go to read, your eyes are like, I've been there for a few years. In the last year or two, it's kind of been going away, but what I do, or what I did then, and what I still do, because it's almost like the reading slump thing has become a habit. And every year, especially around winter time, I have trouble getting into reading. I don't know why it is. So what I do is I switch to reading short stories. I find that reading author collections of short stories or anthologies is a fantastic way to get over your reading slump, because A, they're short. The stories are short. You can get through them easy. And B, if you don't like it, there's no reason why you have to continue reading it, and if you do, it's going to be over soon anyway. So it's just a great way to keep reading when you're not in the mood, and I hate that. I hate reading slumps. Number 10. There are so many new books coming out that you're dying to read. How many do you actually buy? You know, lately, especially since joining BookTube, I've been buying a lot of books. I mean, I'm terrible at it. I watch these videos of people doing their you know, favorite books or a book review, book tags, and I'm like, oh, that book looks great. I go on my cell phone and I order the damn book. Yeah, I gotta slow down on that probably. But yeah, I generally buy a lot of books, and I have to stop. Question 11. After you've bought the new books you can't wait to read, how long do they sit on your shelf before you actually read them? That's a funny question, because sometimes I am guilty of being like, oh, that guy has a new book out, or that woman has a new book out, I love this author, and I rush to the store or the Kindle store or anywhere, and I buy it and I have it in my hands and I put it on the shelf, and a year later it's still there. There are other times though where I'll buy the book, I'm just as excited, I'll buy the book, I'll bring it home, stop everything that I'm reading and get to that and read it. Really, it just depends on my mood. Alright, I think that's all the questions. So thank you guys for listening. This video went a little bit longer than I wanted, but that always happens with me, I yap. So if you're still here, thank you for sticking with me, and keep being creative, and there's lots of videos to come.